Hello everybody and welcome back to the Portimao Performance Workshop. We are back on the Yamaha R1 Portimao repairs. I'm not sure if I've lost some video footage. If I have, then that will be me fitting the front end and everything. So apologies for missing that out, but obviously the yokes and everything came back from Motorliner, got them all fixed and fitted. A couple of conspiracy theorists in the comment noticed that the bike has brand new tyres on that aren't slicks, and when it arrived it had slicks on. Well, that's because the bike has been being used on the Dimag wheels that we put in it when we originally built it. You can see that back in our other videos, and they have gone off to be refurbed because they had loads of stone chips from the gravel. And Hayden brought up with him the original standard Yamaha wheels, which were taken out of the bike when it was built new, and it has never been ridden with them on. So they are brand new tyres as supplied on the road bike and brand new standard Yamaha wheels. This is not a different bike, it has not been swapped out. So let's crack on with today's job. Today's job is basically making sure, or trying to check that the frame is straight. So I'm going to get my laser kit out on the bike. Basically that has a little setup which goes on the front wheel and a setup which goes on the rear wheel, and it points a couple of laser pointers towards the front, and then you can see whether there's any sort of twist and whether everything lines up okay. Just to give us an idea if the frame is good, which I'm sure it will be. We have touched in the swing arm now. We've still got the damaged chain adjusters on there. We're just waiting for a new set to turn up from L74. But we touched up the swing arm. It looks as good as it can be, really. Stone chips are just such a pain. But anyway, once we get this alignment checked and we're happy that the frame is straight, I can then crack on with bolting some other bits and pieces on, such as the new rear sets, get the other exhaust on, and generally just start thinking about reassembling the bike. Right, let's get this laser check done. So we're just getting the front alignment plates fitted up to the front wheel, and then making sure that the front wheel is sort of straight and it's all in a good position. And now here we're just putting the rear kit in, which actually has the lasers itself in them. And then just again double checking that the front end is lined up and straight. And then a few little tweaks, we'll see where we're at. So to show you the setup, can't remember whether I was showing you this kit before, but it's actually quite a cheap kit that Sealy do, and it just gives you a sort of good idea of what's going on. So basically you have those two fittings which go on your wheel like that, on your tyre. It works better on new tyres. When you've got old tyres in, especially if it's a race tyre with like bobbles on the edge, then it's not as accurate. But that goes on there. And then the front plates go on there, and they've obviously got lines and increments on them, and then it points the laser line up the board like that. And obviously you're looking at each side and seeing whether they're give or take in the same spot. It only takes a very small movement of the adjusters to make a difference at the front end, so obviously you have to make sure the bars are straight when you check it. But like I said, big thing I use for this as well as wheel alignment, is just seeing whether everything's kind of in line. And what we're looking at here really is whether the laser line is kind of straight with the vertical lines on the board. If it was like off on an angle, then that could indicate that the front end was twisted one way or the other. Like the front knocked out. But that's all good. And also when, like with the Litec adjusters from the L74 kit, when the numbers are kind of in the same position on the adjusters either side, that it sort of matches up with the the alignment on the front end too, which it does. So I'm pretty happy after doing those checks, and now knowing that the front end's straight, that we've got no chassis issues, and that means that we can crack on with rebuilding the rest of the bike. And now we can get cracking with fitting the new exhaust system, or brand new second hand, that we got from one of my other customers for Hayden. As per normal, I'll wait to see in the comments all the people that mention that I don't have a ramp. Yep, still haven't bought one, still quite enjoy lying around on the floor. So we're just bolting up all the manifolds and the headers, getting everything lined up,
As you can see, I've got the front wheel out of the bike and I've still got it on the big axle stands, and that gives me good access to get in there and fit the exhaust without having to take the radiator or oil cooler fully off. And now just bolting up the oil cooler and the radiator back on their mounts, and get the front wheel fitted back in and get it back on its wheels.
So let's have a quick walk through where we're at. Like I said, I lost a bit of footage, my bad. But basically, obviously, all the front end's back in. We've got the new handlebars on it. That switchgear's kind of survived. That one we've replaced. Hayden actually decided whilst the bike was here that we were going to put a thumb brake on it. So we've gone for a Hell bar mounted thumb brake. Now these things, this is probably the best one from a fitment point of view that I've found over the years. But even with this, the amount of space that you have to play with is always reduced. So even though we've got lock stops on it, we're still quite close to the frame with the adjuster knob there, but it should be good enough. But you always find that with thumb brakes, trying to get them in the right place where they're good to use and where they don't foul things. Like even up here, we've had to just tweak this bracket just to give us enough clearance on the clutch lever. If we hadn't have machined that bit out there, then we wouldn't have been able to rotate that as far down, which then wouldn't give us as nice a feel and wouldn't clear the frame. I do think R1s are probably one of the most awkward bikes for a thumb brake because they're quite wide in this area here, which just sort of makes everything more difficult trying to fit it all on the handlebars. But these really neat little unit, mainly because it's all one bit which is made specifically for that purpose. A lot of other thumb brakes you get, they use like a generic rear master cylinder or just your original rear master cylinder, so you end up with this big like bracket and all this mess, whereas this is all incorporated into one. Really nice adjuster. And there's also different lengths of lever you can get as well, so depending on your handlebar setup, we might have had that on a more conventional handlebar setup, that side of the clutch lever, and then we'd have a longer lever on it, but works quite nicely like that. New clutch lever blade fitted, and new brake lever blade fitted. Obviously all the front air intake duct is on. The brake system's all bolted up, but like I said in an earlier video, there's quite a heavy nick in the brake line there, so we're going to put a fresh set of brake lines on. Probably won't bore you with that. Plenty of my other videos show us bleeding brakes. Obviously we did the time lapse of getting the headers on, so they're on. I've just loosely put the silencer on because if you remember from when we built the bike, we actually had to modify the rear bracket on the Bonamici Rearsets to get it in the right place for the Aqua exhaust. So I've just been sorting that out here, lined it all up and re-drilled and cut down that bracket so that will fit. I just need to take this back plate and just countersink those holes for the bolts to get them out of the way of the main plate, which sort of goes over that. So that's all good. Spoke to Hayden today. The new adjusters from L74 are coming, so I can get the front end back, rear end all back together. I need to get the protectors glued on. Now we know the frame's good. You'll see, I think I did a video, but I might have lost it. You'll see in here, I've got like a tie rod that I just made up, two M10 eyelets, and then an adjustable rod in between. So it means I can move the bike around when the shock's not in it. Darren's actually messaged me, Darren from MCT Suspension, to say the shock's ready. We were just waiting for a new bottle to come in for that. So I'm going to go and pick that up in a bit and get the shock back in. That's good to go. We've also had a Yamaha delivery, so we've got a new casing and a new bung to go on. Hayden sent me some other GB Racing bits. So we've got a new GB Racing cover to go on there and a couple of bullet sliders. He got this spare set off a friend of his. So yeah, just little bits and pieces really. We'll start getting it all bolted back together. Now the one other thing I'll show you with the thumb brake, because we want to actually keep the foot brake as well, is we're going to use a junction valve. Now I've actually made these myself in the past before you could buy them from a company that makes them. But basically what this does is it replaces your reservoir in your standard rear master cylinder. So we take that pipe off, we pull that rubber off, and there's a circlip behind there and this little plastic bit. You take the circlip out, that plastic bit pulls out. Then we replace it with that, new O-ring, new circlip. That goes in, and then in the top there is your banjo thread bolt. So your line from the front brake, which is just tucked up here at the moment, basically ends up going into the feed on the standard rear master cylinder. And then obviously your reservoir, which is up there, held by a Palmer Performance handy bracket, feeds into the front brake up there, and then feeds through the standard rear master cylinder. So when you push the front brake, it pushes all the way through into the rear brake, and then if you just want to use the foot brake, then it just works like the foot brake normally would do. So that gives you options. A lot of racers these days like using the dual link brake, because when you want to use a lot of pressure, you're better off using your foot. On data logins, somewhere like Brands Hatch, when you come out of the name of the corner escapes me now. Surtees, I want to say. It's the left, which takes you out onto the back straight towards Hawthorns. You always get a lot of wheelie there, so most riders will be hard on the rear brake there, putting something like 30 bar on the data login through the rear brake. You can't put 30 bar through a rear brake system with a front brake, maybe 10-ish or so. So it gives you, when you want to use that extra bit of force, you can use your foot. The rest of the time, when you're like trying to control the bike a little bit on corner entry and stuff like that, you can use your thumb. It's a lot less sensitive. So yeah, all good. And that is about it really. Get the new rear sets on, get the brakes sorted and bled up, get all the airbox back on, and then we can think about firing it up, making sure it fires up okay. We're going to do an oil and filter change while it's here. And obviously we've got the new fairings to fit on, which is my favourite job, as you all know. Right, let's get cracking on the next jobs.
Let's finish off getting these new rear sets fitted, Loctite in all the appropriate places, and then I tend to replace the heel plate bolts with some slightly longer ones with nuts on the back, because sometimes some riders, they rest their foot or push their foot quite hard against the heel plate, and when the bolts are actually quite small for them, it can pull the threads out. So just tends to give a little bit of extra support if you use a longer bolt with a nut on the back. Obviously putting the pegs and everything back in the same place they were. Now we've got the shock back from Darren from MCT, so we're going to put the bike on peg stands, take out my little temporary rod and get the rebuilt shock back in the bike. Get the old torque wrench out, torque up all the fixings. Little push up and down, make sure everything feels good. And whilst the wheel's out, got to get everything cleaned down, ready to put the new carbon protectors on. So just checking the fitment's okay first. Bit of brake cleaner just to clean up each side, and then get a bit of adhesive on the cover, some nice big dobs of it. Stick it on, and then a few cable ties, just hold it in place while the adhesive sets. Same again for the left-hand frame side that needed replacing. Bit of a wipe down with the brake cleaner first with the solvent. A few big dobs. Get that pushed on. A few cable ties around again, and we'll leave them on for a good few days. Make sure it's all set properly before we take them off. And now we're just going to swap out the slightly gravel rash adjusters, put the new ones in. Pretty straightforward job really. Bit of Loctite in the appropriate places. We've also got a new L74 Sharks fin there, which we're putting on. And that's also got the paddock stand lifters for the sort of more race style paddock stand that Hayden has. I think some people call them endurance paddock stands. The idea being that it's kind of easier and quicker to get the paddock stand in and located and the bike up on its rear wheel. So with all the new adjusters in, everything cleaned and whatnot, we can drop the wheel back in. Obviously showing how easy it is with the L74 kit. Hook the chain off, make sure it's fully connected all around the sprocket. Nicely lubed up the spindle, get that through, and then we can set our chain tension. So we'll just give it a few turns We won't fully tighten the wheel because obviously we're going to set the chain tension, so we'll just nip it up and then back it off quarter of a turn. And then the Lightech adjusters, obviously they've got the little adjusters on the back, and they've got the nice little clicky mechanism when you turn them, and then the nice little marks on there for lining it up. So we can just give a few clicks each side, just get the chain tension somewhere near. I always tend to do like a bit on one side and a bit on the other, because if your wheel's on the hoof while you're trying to set your chain tension, you know, it kind of will affect, you know, you don't want to just keep tensioning one side till it's right and then go to the other side, because when you do the other side, then your chain tension changes quite a bit. And this video is quite good because you can kind of see, as I'm adjusting the other side, how much that's actually affecting the chain tension on the left hand side, even though the left hand side's not turning. It's just the angle of the sprocket, if you like. So you can see, just checking the tension over sort of whilst rotating the wheel, because you will find that the chain will be tight, even though, you know, it's all new and that. People go, oh, there's a tight spot in the chain. There isn't a tight spot in the chain. It's just sometimes the sprockets aren't perfectly round, and you'll find in some places it's tighter than others. So always check it through a good couple of rotations of the wheel. Make sure it's not too tight or too loose in any place. A couple of last tweaks. Make sure that the adjustment marks line up on both sides, as per what we checked with the laser aligner. And there we go, it's good to go. And just finally nip up the wheel. We'll talk that properly in a bit.
And there we go. Finished my usual favourite job of fitting the fairings. I didn't bother recording it because you've seen enough of me fitting fairings recently, I reckon. But yeah, there are still a couple of odds and ends that we're waiting on. Hayden, when he comes and picks up the bike, will probably bring them. So a new front mud guard, a new rear hugger. He is going to get a new tank cover bit. Although this one can probably be sanded back and repaired. So obviously there's paint work that needs to be done, but Hayden's got another trip booked end of November. So he's just going to take it out with the fairings plain for that one, and then get it painted over winter. But yeah, I think we've done a pretty good job of hiding all the damage. Obviously touched up the swing arm bits. You're always going to notice where you've touched it up, but you know, from a distance it all looks mint again. Yeah, let's hope we don't see it back again quite so soon. And I don't think there's really much more we can say. I don't know whether I pointed this out actually. Got a Bonamici dash protector on there as well, just in case he has another incident. The dash survived this time. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Please take a look at all my other videos. There's plenty on there now to take a look at. Not sure what's going to come up next. Probably have a little break again for a bit. We'll see what interesting stuff comes into the workshop over the winter. In the meantime, take care.